The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Are you ready to take a journey? Let's connect with the healers of the world. It's that time. It's time for the Language of Healing on W4WN Radio and Talk 4 TV. Now here's your host, Dr. Nicole Fortin.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Language of Healing. You're tuning in on W4WN.com and Talk 4 TV. This is the Women for Women Network, and where we're sharing all sorts of goodness for your heart, soul, body, mind. Today, we're diving in a little bit more into that seasonal shift. And, cycles are always happening, changes are always happening. So it's really a matter of how we respond and take that in, how we move forward. And, sometimes just a little note, when things are cycling and shifting and changing, sometimes we want to be better or grow and learn from our mistakes or learn from some of the situations that are coming up for us in life. And at times it can feel like we're just spinning and recycling and, oh, here we go again. This time it's happening like this again. But it's not so much of a circle. We're like always constantly spiraling, and we're always evolving. So even if you're revisiting something, it has a different perspective. So now we're in the fall season in the Northern Hemisphere, of course. And this is naturally a time where we go inward, reflection. Oftentimes people at this time of year will reflect and say, whoa, where did the year go? And have I done what I wanted to do this year? Where am I at? Maybe you set some kind of intentions or goals at the beginning of the year. I personally feel like this time of year is the fresh start because of that inward look and retrospect. And it's helpful to look back at where we've been to help us move forward to where we want to go in the future. Last week, we talked about the metal element, living in that full metal freedom, and what that means. That means that fall season is related to the metal element, which represents things like resilience, strength, emotional stability. It's the time for emotional maturity, and some things that might come up right now in the emotional realm could be related to sadness and grief. And I mean, here in Canada, I can feel the temperatures are changing. There's a bit of a chill in the air. It's like that metal coldness, that rigidity. And today we're welcoming in the heart, a little bit of the fire aspect to help smooth and warm some of those harsher aspects. And really check into what our heart has to say. And it has so much to say. We won't get all of it through today, but let's do our best. And of course, we have a very special guest with us today that we will meet soon. And our trusty sidekick, the pipe man. Let's bring him on. Welcome him with a big warm heart. Big hugs. Hello. You're back from the ultimate metal festival. No. You're deep in festival season, Pipe Man Tour, the king of all festivals. Hey, speaking of the emperor today, which is the heart, by the way, you're kind of like the emperor of your world.
You know what's so funny about that? I just packed a shirt from that for the next festival that I'm going to, and it is by one of the vendors at the festivals, and it is the Emperor, the tarot card, the Emperor. So it's pretty funny you should say that. I was also testing you to see if while you were talking in the beginning of the show, if you were looking at the camera or you were looking at us backstage as I was sitting there diving when you were saying diving in. So I was sitting there going like that, like with both. I can't drop my other hand or else I'll drop the mic, and not in a good way. But I was diving in as you were saying that, and you didn't even break character, so you were looking at the camera.
Yeah, focused here.
Good move. But yeah, I just got back from some musical therapy. I'm a big believer that music is the best therapy. In fact, when we were locked down, had no live music. I think that's why people are so mad and depressed, because they didn't have that outlet. You know, we have things that go on in our life, matters of the heart. And I think a lot of times music helps with that, not only for the musician, but also the listener. So I had something go on, and I left that and went to first Riot Fest, which I might have talked about a little last week because I only got to one day of it. But Slayer played for the first time in 5 years, and I went to their pit, and I got every bit of emotion I had in and left it in that pit. And people don't understand that about the mosh pit. Like, they think it's about going in and, being tough or hurting and maiming people. No, it's a healthy way to get out your aggression instead of on somebody else. And I'll tell you how good that therapy was. So then I leave that festival and I'm going to Louisville for Louder Than Life. And in the airport, waiting for the plane, I had my AirPods plugged in so I could charge them so I could watch the movie on the plane on the way to the festival. And what happened? Somebody next to me, lovely manners of people in 2024, decides to didn't ask, didn't say anything, while I'm not looking, pull my plug out and plug his back and plug his in. Okay. Now, I didn't notice at first because I was actually on the phone on my AirPods, and he just unplugs it like while I'm not looking.
Wow.
Luck for him, I went to Slayer the night before and was in that mosh pit because all I did was look at him, like a look on my face, like, really? Didn't say a word, ignored it, didn't get arrested, which was probably might have happened had I not been in that Slayer pit, because all those emotions that I left in the pit would have been inside me, plus him touching my things without asking and invading my space. Could have ended badly without music therapy. With music therapy,
Yeah.
I made it to Louder Than Life instead of the Chicago police station, maybe. And then Louder Than Life was cool. Here's another thing. Okay, so I'm the type of person that when there are matters of the heart that are negative, I dive into work because you go into a different mode when you're working. So A, you change your mindset. B, you don't have time to think about those other things that are bothering you. So while I was sitting there doing interviews, I think by the way, I came back to Florida. I'm in Florida today because I had to get away from the hurricane. Like,
okay,
it didn't hit
Florida
here.
got hit. No?
Not here, but it did in Louisville. We had the second day of Louder Than Life was canceled because we were in a hurricane. Okay.
Wow.
But on those other days, like, I did so many interviews that I had no time to think about anything negative in life. And because of that, it gives you more of a euphoric feeling that helps you to cope with matters of the heart. Everybody does it differently. That's my way. That's a lot of people's ways. Now, there's very much different ways to handle those things. Some healthier than others, some not so much. But our expert guest will probably give us even more insight. She'll probably give me crap too for like doing the whole avoidance thing, but that's okay. But I think we should bring her on and let's talk about her spin on matters of the heart and anything else that she wants to talk about.
Yeah. Let's bring her on, Dr. Frances Gatt.
Hello.
Yay.
Hello.
So we got Dr. Frances Gatt.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. We're very lucky. Do you have any thoughts? I mean,
you bet.
Little thoughts. I know.
I knew she did.
As you were talking, Dean, and you were saying, "Oh, I put myself into my work," and on the Huberman Lab podcast, there was some talk about heartbreak, and one of the things that came up is that your brain becomes very motivated. That there's a part of your brain that gets triggered with heartbreak that gets you motivated to do more stuff, to get going, typically to work out or get very physical, to become more attractive to possible mates, maybe. So that's interesting that you kind of work through it. You're like, okay, I'm just going to keep pushing through because there's this sense of motivation that the brain kind of triggers. So I thought that was kind of interesting that you said that.
You know what else is interesting? Is one of the bands I interviewed, the lead singer is also a therapist.
Okay, very cool.
So we even
talked therapy.
Yeah, so we even talked about it in the interview. I don't think he thinks my way is a healthy way personally, but I think it's different for everybody. I think healthy way is not like a cookie cutter thing. You know, I think everybody's different.
Everybody's different.
I know that the other people affected by the same scenario I was talking about, they're the females in my family, and then I have my son in my family. My son and I were just talking recently, and it's like he deals the same way. They, on the other hand, are like immersing in their negativity to the point where after I left, there were scenarios that went on that I think were not healthy. And I think me personally, doesn't mean it's right, what's right for different people, but me personally, immersing yourself in that negativity only creates more negativity, and people blow up and get into fights and get into arguments and lose their crap. And, you know, that's why when I look at the way I handle, I'm like, well, mine might be the healthier way because those results weren't healthy. And mine, I'm here on this radio show and I'm fine.
Okay. I think a lot of people like the physicality of moving through things. Like you're dancing, you're singing, you're participating in the mosh pit. And for females, maybe there's a lot of talk therapy that goes on. Mm-hmm. Whereas sometimes even with males, when we talk about, you know, hardships, trauma, heartbreak, they tend to want to move through it physically with the physical aspect. But that's not, you know, that's not linear either. Everybody's very different. Music therapy, I think everybody can benefit.
That is a great point, though, because I do think I'm a big believer in men and women speak different languages, and that doesn't just mean verbally.
Our brains process thoughts differently, right? Females' thoughts cross the corpus callosum. Male thoughts typically run front to back. So the way that we process thoughts, feelings are inherently different, typically.
Yeah. What do you have to say, Doctor?
Me?
Yeah.
Or Dr. Gatt?
No, Dr.
Yeah, I mean, there's like what I think about is that either way, that energy wants to move, and it inspires us because like that, say heartbreak, for example, or loss, or even moments of joy, like it's like it moves the energy, you know, and one way or the other. Like, so I think it is about developing healthy boundaries and stuff like that. I think it's very fascinating how men and women do process things differently, and our brain structure is different. And even, you know, from a Chinese medicine perspective, everything is yin, yang, qi, blood. There's like, those are the most simplest form of how we look at the body or how we approach life. Is, are they balanced? Are they, you know, is one higher than the other? But like women are more blood, you know, which means like more material, more yin, more deep introspective emotion feeling. So like it's much easier to get into that space, where men are more governed by qi, which is immaterial. It's like air movement, you know. So yeah, it's like this a constant dance between the two. We obviously have both of them, but Yeah, so maybe you release your stress through moshing or punching something, or women will like want to dive into like the talking and the feeling and the crying and then I don't think it's right or wrong. It's just a different way to
No,
move that
it's just
energy because if it gets stuck, like this is also a point where sometimes those emotions get stuck, repressed, and that's where like things like depression show up. And I think heartbreak can show similar symptoms of depression. So it's like having an outlet is healthy.
and I think there's different ways people process that too, because of the fact that, you know, some people like myself that maybe don't live in it, you never have that trauma of it holding it in because you are working through it. You're just not working through it outwardly, okay? And there's a difference. And perfect example I was thinking of while you're talking is they talk about the 5 stages of grief, and I was
Mm.
just talking about this with my son today, and, like, basically, I go straight to acceptance. Now, that doesn't mean what people don't understand is that doesn't mean you don't go through all the cycles. It's just like bam, bam, bam. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on these negative ones and then just go through the acceptance because men always want to move on. We want to solve the problem, you know? And like you said, women, they want to talk about the problem. Men don't want to talk about the problem. We just want to solve the problem, move on. And so, on the other hand, the other side that doesn't process that way doesn't understand the way I'm talking about either, because a lot of times the people that do it the opposite way, they recycle those 5 stages of grief over and over and over again. And so, again, neither way is wrong. It's what's right for you. It's like I've told my daughters several times, you need coping skills for things. They don't have to be my coping skills, but find the one that works for you. Like everybody has their coping skills. It's not cookie cutter. We can, all 3 of us, generalize, but everybody's an individual. What we're saying about men and women doesn't apply to all men and women either.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and
and
Dean, I know just from like a little side note, because I've known you for some time and I know you have been through lots in your life and the way that you handle it and you're very metal. Like you definitely, cultivate that strength and resilience and it's admirable. And thank you for joining us and being here and sharing your 2 cents, especially on the women's network, because it's nice to have that other perspective.
yeah,
No,
we need some
Yeah.
I
young.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Like I always say, I was saying this to somebody recently. If I want to know about women, I don't ask men. And then I think I told one of my daughters recently, same thing. Like, if you want to know about men, don't ask a woman. Like, it's like you should ask the source because we can speculate. I can think I know as much as I want to think I know about women, but I've never had to walk in life as a woman. So I can't really 100% know. It's all just a guess.
Yeah, and just like you're the guy that took your plug out, like everyone's coming into life with a different, like just different playing field, and I see that as a very metal quality too, like rude, harsh, a little bit
Yeah, he's lucky he
selfish.
didn't get strangled with my cord,
Yeah.
because that's what I was really thinking.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my goodness. No, you handled that well. So what else, Dr. Gatt, like happens in our body when we're going through okay, so there's like the heart and the Shen connection.
Okay,
Maybe you want to talk a little bit about that because yeah, the heart is seen as like the emperor or the empress. It's like what governs like the beat of the heart is what sets the pace of our life,
yeah.
and let's hear more about that.
Yeah, let's talk about the Shen a little bit.
Yeah.
This is like the spirit mind. It's your consciousness. It's your everyday mental well-being, how you present yourself, your eye contact. It also kind of governs the other spirits, right? So there's 5 spirits, 5 elements, and the Shen is the spirit of the heart. But there's all these 4 other spirits or like the metal element, where it's the Po, the spirit of the lung, the breath, the corporeal soul. And any way you hash it out, the Shen impresses on all of those other four spirits. It's governing all of them. When we talk about grief of the lung, and we're talking about the Po, we can talk about heartbreak, we can talk about death. Doesn't really matter. The Po is the first soul to show up during conception, and I guess it's always kind of trying to make it back to the ground, is how I see that. So when we look at situations where people are careless, suicidal, something like that, that's the Po, that's the lung, that's the metal element. So I think it's interesting that the Shen is our everyday mentality, but also governs all the other spirits, the intellect, the Yi, the Ji, the willpower. What am I missing, Jericho?
The Hun.
The Hun. Oh, my favorite. The ethereal soul.
Yeah, the ethereal souls.
The ethereal.
And like,
yeah.
So like the Hun and the Po kind of are opposite of each other, because the Po, the lung, the metal element, is like the corporeal. It's like real and true. It's material. And then the Hun, the liver, the anger, or the generosity aspect of life is more ethereal. It's like immaterial.
But even going back to like, talking with Dean about male and female, yin and yang, the kidneys and the heart have a really neat kind of relationship, because the heart is that fire, right? That heat. The kidneys are that cooling water. So if you're getting fired up, like Dean is saying, this guy took his thing out, he could have got fired up, but he was cool. So when you're cool, your kidneys, yin, is cooling the heart fire. So I think that's where that term came from, playing it cool, being cool, because we have enough water to cool that fire. And so there's your kind of basic yin yang of your whole body. So those two organs I feel like are really important. And in Western medicine, your blood pressure is related to your urination, which is your kidney, related to your bladder. And that balance is really important, right? If you have high blood pressure, you're likely to have a red face and be hot, like hot-headed, right? So that's what I think about when you ask me about that.
Thank you for explaining my ex-wife.
Is she the yang or what?
No, she has high blood pressure, but now it all makes sense.
Yeah, right? Who's the yin?
Well, I mean, that could be like a quality of women, because, we do kind of, like, yeah.
Well, here's the thing too. There's our spleen, our earth element. Females are always like that earth mothering, but they overthink, they over nurture. That's a pathology, right? That sometimes they're overdoing the natural qualities to be mothering as well, and that's when the spleen is out of balance there. So maybe
and then like too much earth can dampen the fire. Like you have a fire going, like too much water, too much earth will like quell the fire. So then you're like passionless, you're kind of running on empty, maybe you're not connected to purpose, and then
you're overthinking all the wrong things.
There's nothing grounded and rooting. And that term, another term, like when because the Shen is connected to the heart and it's the spirit, but when someone says like I'm losing my mind, or like losing it, it's like because like the Shen just isn't resting in the heart. It's it's filled with other traumas, worries,
and memory, right? Memory of the heart. The heart remembers.
Yeah,
that's why I think it's so important to get it out instead of living in it, because then you're just building on top of each trauma over and over again, and that's when you explode.
Yeah, people get stuck in grief and heartbreak, whatever. They get stuck there. And if you don't move through it, you just have to keep doing it for longer and over again. So you see with death.
Yeah.
So if somebody is the person who has to deal with all of the arrangements, financials, that kind of stuff, they're not grieving. They're doing a lot of that processing, going through, getting paperwork done. And so their grieving tends to like last longer because they were too busy pushing through and getting all the stuff done that they needed to do. So they tend to have a longer grief process, and a little bit more difficult, I would say, because they didn't get to do it at the time.
What's interesting about what you said is something else my son and I were talking about is like, you know, you have to still get life done. So there's the people grieving that just stop everything, but that only to us, that only makes things worse, because then when you finally start to come out, then you have a whole new set of problems because you weren't working, you weren't paying your bills, you weren't doing any of these things. Whereas how a man thinks is, man, I don't care what's happening in life. I can't stop working because otherwise I'll be homeless. And what good will that do?
And I see a lot of males work through their trauma, literally work. They're going to work, they're overworking. And, you know, sometimes it's because they're not dealing with things, or sometimes that's how they deal with things. So that's really, you know, individual.
So
but oftentimes they're working.
I'll speak as a male and where I first learned it. So I used to be in the investment business. And when I first got in the investment business, the owner of the firm would hold these morning meetings. And one of the things he'd say every single day is, you know, basically, we all have baggage, we all have personal things going on, but this is your safe zone. So leave your baggage at the door. You can pick it up on the way out. But while you're working, those things can't bother you here, and including things like bill collectors, they can't reach you here. But also, what can solve your problems, like stuff like that, like bill collectors, is making money. So if by being in work and working, you're solving the problems in that way. And it doesn't mean you're not having the problems or focusing on. That's why I say pick it back up when you go home. So like you're trained as a male in most male dominated industries, you're trained to have zero feeling of personal life in work. That's your safe zone and your escape and your solving of problems. And then when you're done working, even being sick, okay, like when I'm sick, I don't even feel it while I'm working, or I used to get migraines all the time. I didn't feel it at all while I was working. After work was over, because I gave myself permission to feel sick and to feel. So it's not like you ignore it completely. It's that out in public, you don't put it out there. And in the things that could help you through it, you don't. And then when you're home in the solitude by yourself, that's when you let those things out.
To your benefit, I would say. Right?
Say that again?
I think that's to your benefit.
Yeah.
You can go to work and become like compartmentalize. This is my work.
Key word.
This is my life.
Key word right there, compartmentalize. I do find that a lot of times that emotional beings can't compartmentalize.
It can be very difficult, yeah, for many people. I think music, like going back to that, anybody could benefit from that during grief. I think that everybody has songs that they made them feel better or worse. When they're heartbreaking, when there's death, whenever. And I feel like music can do that for everybody. And so
ultimate escape.
Yeah, I agree. I agree that doesn't matter what it is and what you like. That's beside the point. But like everybody benefits from that. And your body receives that, I think. I think the vibration of sound is essential for life.
Yeah.
You know, moving your lymphatic system, moving the blood.
So much of music comes from like moments of pain or joy or life experience. So it's literally resonating with you, right? Like someone else has walked this path before, and you know, we might just be in it now. And you know, in like the Taoist alchemical acupuncture world, because it's like acupuncture and Chinese medicine is sort of like alchemy. You're turning something into something else. And music is a very like metal quality. Like it's in that category of activities that support the metal element, which is like the lungs, the large intestine, the grief, the sadness, you know, or that harshness of life. But then, you know, we bring in something like the heart, which is about joy and passion and purpose, and like that warms those things. So when you're, you know, a musician, or when you're like in that moment, you're just like this effortless flow that helps move things. And music therapy is amazing.
I'll even take the music a step further, from even talking to musicians in interviews, and we talk about it all the time. So the key to a really good song is you write the song based on your own meaning and your own trauma or whatever it is, and the person listening to it can apply their own to it. So a good musician is not trying to make everybody experience the same thing. It's just experiencing it. That's the key, in your own way, and what meaning you put to it, you know, and how it affects your life. And like, even if you talked about Taylor Swift, it's obvious that she gets through her heartbreaks with guys through writing her songs, because pretty much every song's about every relationship she's ever had, you know, and that's how she, in my opinion, deals with that pain and produces something positive out of it.
Same with like, yeah, or, you know, like artists. Oh, this is kind of interesting. You know, like artists, musicians included, might get really creative in the nighttime. Maybe this will go a little like off, but you know, because if we're talking about like the heartbreak and the kind of tougher parts of life, that's like the the metal element, and the opposite of that is like the creative liver, like spring season, like abundance, blossoming. So to get into that space to help balance, you know, because like we're always looking for balance amongst, so you can, if you're in one spot, stuck in one spot, just look to the opposite area, you know, and like feed in some of those qualities. I don't know if I'm.
Do you feel like music gets put into 5 elements? Like I think that there's songs that I'm like, you feel the heart, you feel the fire, and then some songs you feel the anger, you feel that liver, and so I think you can kind of compartmentalize them into like, you know, elements. Here's the grief, you know, I hear it, you feel it inside. When people sing, you feel their grief.
Yeah.
Or you, like an artist, like a painting or something, you can sense that. Like through
that's the thing with music too. It's a full sensory experience. It's not just the music. It's a full sensory. In fact, when I was in college taking a music class, they said the way to write a hit song is to appeal to all types of people, and to expand on that, the song must appeal to auditory, visual, and kinesthetic people. And if you can hit all 3 of those people, you basically hit everybody, you know, because everybody has that, you know.
Beat is like your heartbeat, you know, and so if you can get people to feel a beat, like really feel it in their hearts, then I feel like you're likely to get them to really enjoy that song.
Yeah, or that like kinesthetic part when you know the beat's gonna drop, or you know that there's like like just and then you just.
How about that at the Danny Wimmer festivals, this one included, they have basically somebody there doing ASL, and they have a group of people that are there for it. And when they're doing the ASL, they're not just saying the words, they're saying the sounds.
They have the beat.
Yeah. And like feeling. And so those people that are watching the ASL are still feeling the same music that we are, that can actually physically hear it.
And they can actually kind of feel vibration through their bodies, right? So they can experience music in a way that we just don't really recognize all the time.
Exactly.
So pretty neat. Okay.
Yeah, I think about what's that?
We all love the mosh pit and music. So.
Yeah.
I think we've proven that metal's the best music during this show.
Definitely up there. Definitely up there.
There's definitely been some good therapy over the years.
100%. Yeah,
for
100%.
life. Yeah, I was kind of reminded of Masaru Emoto. He does like the water crystals.
Water guy. Yeah, okay.
Water guy. And
Yeah.
he wrote music, for each of these like emotions too. So if you're feeling one way, you can listen to this music. It's kind of like classical and like
How about,
know.
how about this?
What's that?
Metallica has their own brand of whiskey, and the way they made the whiskey is basically there are different tastes. The taste of the whiskey, however they word it, based on what Metallica song you listen to.
Nice.
Yes.
I love it. That's brilliant.
See, so
Yeah.
it's like
I want to ride the lightning. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and they do these
You're fire.
tastings, and you'll have headphones on, and they'll play the song, and the different notes of the whiskey come out based on the notes in the song.
You bet. That's
Well, I
brilliant.
love that. Hey,
Yeah.
the taste buds are heart.
Yeah, the
Is that
mouth.
right?
And
Yeah,
the tongue,
mouth.
which is kind of, correlates with the fact that love, joy, you tend to sometimes use your tongue. So that's kind of interesting. With the correlation, right?
Sometimes the tongue shows up.
It does show up sometimes. And the sexual saliva, right, of the kidney. So there's that yin yang.
Now you got my attention.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Tongue and then sexual saliva. I'm there.
And it's when you kiss somebody for the first time, you have this different reaction of the mouth. And I believe, Jericho, that's the kidney, right? The sexual saliva. And I think it's called toi. And typically you only get it the one time. Yeah, toi. But it only happens like maybe a few times. And it's very distinctive with a first time encounter or a first time partner.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So there's that,
there's like the idea of like, the one true love or the one that got away or something like that. I wonder if there's some kind of connection there. You'll never,
right? There's that chemical kind of chemistry that everyone talks about.
Yeah, because it's almost like when you have, I don't know from personal experience, but when you have like deliver a child, like your or you're pregnant or something, or you form life, like your chemistry is different forever. So maybe the first time you experience love or the first time you have that taste, it's like imprinted in your
It is imprinted.
makeup.
Your chemistry remembers that person forever.
And then are you just always trying to like, chase the dragon, so to speak?
I can't get it.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
Oh, well, then I'm screwed then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, I want to get that feeling again. And maybe then they'll just get more partners or new partners. Who knows?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who knows?
Well, my first sexual experience was in the Charles Manson cave, so that might be my problem.
That's a great story. I feel like we need to take some time for that, maybe. Hey.
That's on the Adventures of Bright Man.
Okay, I gotta check that out.
I do have a question for you experts here. So we talk about the organs, and so like in Western medicine, one of the things that really bothers me is how quick, more so now than ever, they are to take organs out of the body, or that they say the organ doesn't serve any purpose. Well, if it didn't serve a purpose, it wouldn't be there to begin with. So my question is if you take an organ out of the body, like the spleen, that's a big one they take out quickly nowadays. They take the gallbladder out. Like if you have the sniffles, they take the gallbladder out. And like cutting people's stomachs out and stuff like that. How does that affect your overall health from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective if the organs that are working off of each other aren't there anymore?
Take it away, Dr. Gatt.
Okay. Something will always have to do more work, right? If the gallbladder is out, something else has to work harder to accommodate that. If the spleen comes out, the liver takes up that job. As far as TCM is concerned, we're cutting through meridians, right? If you're doing surgery,
Yeah.
you've cut through an energetic kind of pathway.
Yeah.
And then you're putting it back together, but obviously it has to reattach and heal itself. So we kind of have to help the body say, okay, this is your attachment. This is where you're supposed to go. It's also very cold in operating rooms. So when, you sew people up and you suture them, all that cold air is inside this. So all the tissue is contractile. It's very tight. It's cold. It's protective. And the blood's not flowing excessively, which is, I think, why they do that. Keep it cold so the blood doesn't likely to bleed out or dilate.
Yeah.
The vessels.
There's another reason too.
Yes, tell me.
Because they do it in prisons too, by the way. Cold is not, contrary to popular belief, cold is not a proper environment for bacteria, viruses, stuff like that. So like they do that so that not the bacteria won't get inside the body because it's so cold. Same reason in prisons, because there's a lack of medical attention. They keep it real cold so people aren't getting sick.
Yeah. Because your spleen actually produces more white blood cells when you're cold. And so you'll see like cold therapies where they put the frozen towels like up to the neck, to the pelvis.
Yeah.
And a lot of what that does is it pulls blood from the major organs and forces it to recirculate. And our major organs hold blood when we're stressed, which is fairly often. When our, sympathetic nervous system is working, which is, cortisol, all that stuff that people experience all the time, every day. And so it forces it to recirculate. And then the spleen says, okay, it's cold, let's make more white blood cells. So you're likely to have a better immune system if you're a little bit cold. Not like cold plunging, that's like a whole different thing. But definitely to be physically cold is to improve your immune system.
That's why Canadians are so hardy. Yeah.
Well, and that the fallacy of flu season and cold season being during the winter, it's not because of winter. Do either what is the reason that people get sick that time of year?
I mean, I think there's probably a lot of avenues for that, right? Do you have any ideas? Or you go?
I know.
Tell me, I want to know.
There's two things. One is you have Thanksgiving and Christmas meals, which are basically a lot of bad overindulging of bad food in your body. On top of that, the ultimate stress that you have during that period of time, more so than any other time of year. So that between the bad food and overindulging it and the stress, you weaken your immune system dramatically. And that's why we get sick.
Exposure to more people at like gatherings.
That too.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point, is that most of your immunity is in your bowels, is in your GI tract. So the more food you have in your stomach or your body at any time, the less your immune system can work, which is why I think there's a lot of conditions where everything is out, vomiting, diarrhea, and the body purges itself of all the food stuff so that it can work harder for recovery or healing or something like that.
Yeah, and think of all the things.
Go ahead, Dean.
No, I was saying, think of all the things that here in the United States we eat on Thanksgiving, which are the same things you eat for Christmas dinner if you celebrate that. They're all like, most of it, the worst things for your body, and you're eating so much that you go into food coma with bad food for your body. Sorry, Nicole, go ahead and say what you were going to say.
No, it's like a really good point, and like a direct connection between like the physical body and the emotional body and how that can affect our overall well-being. And I would agree with you. We're coming into like the holiday season can be quite a triggering time for people, and then on top of that, put all the holidays inside the metal element, the metal season, which is already about emotional, like strength, resiliency, and stuff like that. So if you're not like really built up, but then it can be even more troublesome. But when you notice when we're sick, when we have a cold or something like that, like we're very particular about what we bring into our body. Like you might not even want the taste of sugar, or like, you know, you can just eat very little. It's like being clean and clear, so it's as easy on the body to heal up. And I think that's the same with like the heart or the lungs. You know, if you're holding on to a lot of like emotions, there's not a lot of room for like growth. And I have lots of respect, you know, like everyone's journey is different and we process things differently, but the more space you can allow in, like to help that stagnation, is the better, right? Because I think the more emptiness we have, we can, like, that brings in more growth, you know? Even just like cold is like contracting, freezing, and then suddenly in that lack of movement, like your body is building more. It's like now we have room to build, you know? Okay.
Guess what, Nicole?
This time is up.
No, not yet. But
What?
we got 4 minutes. Less than 4.
Yeah. Too fast.
What are we doing with 4 minutes? Are we going to say our favorite heartbreak songs, or what are we doing?
Yeah.
Are you going to sing for us?
I'm curious to know what your favorite heartbreak song is, or maybe what is your like guilty pleasure song?
Oh,
mine or hers?
Tell me.
Both of you.
Anybody, everyone. I like Foreigner.
I can immediately tell you my not heartbreak song, but about heartbreak that
hit me.
Goes with this show because and it's because of the lyrics. But Can You Feel My Heart by Bring Me to the Horizon.
Okay, I don't know if I know that. I'm gonna look it up.
You gotta read the lyrics of it.
Okay.
And one of the best lyrics of all times is in that song, in my opinion. And it's basically, I can't drown my demons, they know how to swim.
Ah, clever. Okay, I'm gonna check that out.
I'm so curious, Dean. Maybe we'll have to get into this like another time. But what does that mean to you? Like, what pulls you towards that? What do you relate to about that?
That lyric or the whole song?
Yeah, the lyric.
Any of it.
The lyric, because it is true. Like, you know, people misunderstand people like me or males in general as we're like just, you know, brushing the feelings aside. That's not what we're doing, okay? Because you really can't drown that's not healthy. Drowning your feelings, your trauma, any of that stuff, that's not healthy. And that's not what people love to think. And I've had stuff said to me before. Burying yourself in work or doing that is drowning your feelings. No, it's not. It's stopping yourself from over obsessing about your feelings. There's a huge difference. That's why you're bringing the baggage back home with you when you go out the door, so you can feel your feelings. You're not drowning them, because they're gonna resurface. If you try to drown them, they're gonna swim up to the surface. And that's why I think that lyric is so brilliant, because it says it all in a few words.
I dig it.
Yeah, it makes sense. I think that people stuff their emotions down in many ways, whether it be like through food or drinking, smoking, you know, a variety of other things that release, you know, that dopamine hit or some kind of anything other than feeling that physical pain.
So what's yours, Nicole?
Yeah, what do you got?
Oh, I want to hear Frankie's.
Okay. I love song. Descendants, Cameo.
I knew that's where you were going with that.
Love that. Heartbreak song, Foreigner. I Want to Know What Love Is. Classic. So good. Definitely.
Okay. I'm not prepared.
Without thinking deeply about it.
Yeah.
The Descendants were at Riot Fest.
I know. I wanted to be at all of those things, including Aftershock, which I wish I could go to.
So
just get on a plane.
So go.
We'll see.
Oh, that's always a cop out.
That's
a cop out. That means I'm not going.
It means I'll be working.
We'll become shores of Sacramento.
Oh, I can't wait.
Yeah.
That'd be
We
so
didn't even
neat.
talk about this tuxedo T-shirt.
Okay, tell us the story.
Well, I mean, the
Practicum,
time's up now. 'Cause
oncology.
I'll never probably wear
Wait,
this.
she avoided to set her songs.
Yes, that's okay.
Yeah.
You weren't ready for that. Weren't ready for a song pick.
All I think about when I look at you is like Dreamweaver.
Classic. I think about you every time I hear that song.
I thought she was going to say like Closer to the Heart, because unless it's a Rush song, it doesn't matter.
She loves Rush. So you're gonna tell the tuxedo shirt or story or no?
Well, what do we got for time here? Or over? I guess we'll
We
have
got
to
nothing
have you.
All right, quickly tell the story.
Okay. Oh, okay. Now it's on the spot. Okay. Well, I mean, this is just a funny little story of like,
Practicum
you know,
in oncology
yeah,
at
the
the
practicum.
hospital.
Yeah. The practicum.
We're all
where
dressed up wearing white.
Yeah,
and
we go into the
our
hospital for a practicum, you know, and we've got this like
professional.
not exchange student, but she was like foreign student and who was just very new, like, and I mean, to have us as friends and colleagues, you know, maybe that was like a bit of an extreme example of how people live their lives. But you know, we'll go out like, you know, on the town, like just with this or a fake mustache or something and just have fun. But you know, we're in this professional setting of a hospital and like she shows up a little bit late wearing a tuxedo T-shirt. And it just is like, you know, sometimes I didn't tell the story very well, but it was
That's
like
okay. She didn't realize that was not an appropriate place to wear your tuxedo T-shirt.
The question is, were you both wearing a tuxedo T-shirt?
We were in lab jackets and we were behaving very well.
Because
And
if you were,
she didn't quite grasp the concept of, you know, time and place at that time.
yeah, because if you were both wearing the shirts, you would have been the talk of the party.
We would have had them under our lab jackets probably and been like,
yeah, like incognito
like,
professional. What is it like? What does it say? There's that like Ricky Bobby or whatever. He's like, I like, you know, I imagine baby Jesus wearing a tuxedo T-shirt. It's like something.
All right, well, Ricky Bobby, end the show.
Yeah,
okay. We got to go. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was insightful and a pleasure having you with us, and my heart is happy. And I hope everyone just dances through life, through the good, the bad, the ugly, and the blessings. And I guess that's it. Any final words? Check out Pipe Man's show, Avengers of Pipe Man, on Wednesdays, 1 p.m. Eastern Time on W4CY.
And the other final word should be, make sure to tune into Language of Healing every week at the same time, Tuesday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time on W4WN Radio, the Women for Women Network. Roll it, Juan.
There we go.
Wow, what a show today. And the journey does not stop here. Come travel the world with Nicole every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time as together we become more fluent in the language of healing on W4WN Radio and Talk4 TV. See you next week.